Are you one of the many busy professionals working in offices day in and day out? Do you wonder how some people grow their wealth fast, retire early, and play on workdays? Well, you're in luck, because Ginny Bolling hosts this show, Pivot to Prosperity, where she interviews people that can do just that. Play on workdays. Many guests have become financially free. She also interviews people that are on their journey and people that are in support roles, like attorneys, contractors, brokers, and others. Commercial real estate is the common element. She is on a mission to be sure busy professionals know they can own substantial commercial properties too, like apartments, self-storage facilities, and others, and not have to do the work managing them. Passive investing is the key. Syndications are the typical method. Tax write-offs are some of the biggest rewards. Ginny and partners find the deals, build a strong team and business plan, then offer the investment opportunities to passive investors. New episodes are released every Tuesday at 12, so watch for new releases. If you want to get involved, let us know. You need to get pre-qualified to hear about most deals. See the show notes for contact information.
Hello. Ginny Bolling here with Pivot to Prosperity, brought to you by Pivotal Real Estate Investments, where we help investors build wealth and income through commercial real estate that also improves communities. And today we have Jonathan Nichols with us. Jonathan, thank you for coming on.
Thanks, Jenny. Excited to be here.
Now, you are an aerospace engineer by trade, and you have done a lot of cool things that I am wanting you to describe. But first, before you start, your nice sign behind you says your company name, and I'm going to try to pronounce it. I think you said Apogee?
Apogee. Yeah, you're right there.
All right. Well, tell us first about how you came up with a challenging name like that.
Yeah. So as you already mentioned, my former career was working as an aerospace engineer, and in the role of aerospace engineering, apogee is a term that you use when you're describing like one thing orbiting another. And specifically, it means like the furthest point in an orbit. And so, it's kind of a key point that you use, when you're talking about like satellites orbiting or spacecraft. But the more like colloquial definition of it is reaching like a pinnacle or a summit, if you will. And so it kind of marries my old career with what we're doing today, which is helping investors reach their financial potential. So that's how we came up with the name Apogee.
Nice. So, yeah. And is it the individual that's at the center of
Well,
the epic,
hopefully they're on top, hopefully they
the top?
the
Oh,
idea is
right.
like
You did
reaching their
say,
furthest financial potential, right? Reaching the furthest point that they can is kind of the idea behind it.
all right. And we were talking offline too. You're a runner, you said, right? So, yes, you would relate to that as a runner.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to run a little more than I do now, but still pretty active. So
Terrific. Well, so tell us, how did you end up going from aerospace engineering into real estate? Are you full-time into real estate?
I am. Yeah, it's interesting. So my wife and I got married about 8 years ago, and shortly after we got married, she informed me that we should have some kind of hobby together. And so we'd both kind of had an interest in doing some extra investing and a little bit of interest in real estate. And so we thought, well, hey, what if we did some real estate investing and had a hobby that paid us instead of us paying for the hobby, right? And so that's kind of how we got started. And we really didn't have super high ambitions. We thought like, hey, we'll buy one or two single family homes and just rent those out as like a side investment. But we did that. Our first purchase was actually a fourplex near where we live that we house hacked, and we continued to buy a lot of single family from there. And it just grew and grew and did particularly well. So during COVID times, we had learned a little about multifamily and kind of made the decision that long term we wanted to have our own real estate investing business. And so that's how Apogee was born. We started, looking at deals and then buying deals in kind of COVID era times, and haven't turned back since. So I've been a full-time investor for almost 4 years and she for about 2 years now.
And has your income surpassed what you were making in the professional world?
As a whole, I would say yes. Definitely, if you consider like equity in deals, it's a roller coaster, right? You don't get a paycheck every 2 weeks. It's kind of you have some really big days, and then there's some long stretches in between. So you definitely want to have some savings, and definitely want to be good at budgeting. But overall, I would say it's been for the better.
Right, especially when you start counting equity. Sometimes, especially as we're going to talk about, you are a syndicator, you are the general partner, you are the hands-on guy. The general partners get paid last. So
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah,
it makes a
exactly.
difference. Yeah, yeah. But you have that equity out there, it's there. So,
Exactly. We're actually about to sell, have our first full cycle deal we're selling next month, and it looks like we're going to exceed projections on it pretty soundly. So that's exciting, and we'll get a nice paycheck from that. So looking forward to that one for sure.
all right. So I'm trying to think, can you use your company name in a sentence that would describe that deal?
That
Maybe.
would describe that deal. I would say that, so the deal's called Sierra Condos. I would say Sierra, let me think about this. Sierra Condos um, is at the apogee of this investing cycle because we bought it at the top of the cycle, right? To the bottom, which is maybe not ideal, but pretty fortunately, we're able to execute well on our business plan and therefore make some good money for our investors, which we're excited about.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Using it in a sentence. Maybe you should do that more.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good exercise for sure.
All right. Well, so how in the world did you end up coming across real estate? Was there something in particular that happened?
Yeah, it's this is kind of a boring answer, but it's the truth is, I've been an avid reader my whole life. I love to read. So I picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad like everyone, right?
Yep,
Um, so that's really all there is to it. And then after that, learned about a lot of other great books and podcasts like Bigger Pockets, and then I met some local people at a meetup and talked to them, and yeah, just kind of snowballed from there, of meeting people, listening to podcasts, and kind of like I said, did it all with my wife along the way. So,
that's
um,
terrific.
and
Yeah.
and so yeah, we've done a lot together.
And you are located in
We're
well,
in Dallas Fort Worth area for anyone that knows it really well, kind of the North Arlington pocket of the Metroplex.
gotcha. And so tell us what you're doing now.
Yeah.
How do you
So
spend your days?
yeah, we've done a number of syndication projects today. I spend a lot of time doing acquisitions. That's kind of my focus is looking for deals. My wife Paula, she focuses on asset management, which for any listeners that don't know, that's basically after you close the deal, running it well and making sure that you're hitting the benchmarks you need to. I assist some with that, but that's kind of her wheelhouse, if you will. And then my free time, I go running. I like to travel. Paula and I travel quite a bit. And then we actually just had our first kiddo 2 months ago. So now spend a lot of time with her in our free time.
All right, it's a girl you just said. Yeah, what's her name?
Her name's Chloe.
Chloe. How nice.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Except at 2 a.m.
Yeah. Well, 2 months, yeah. It's gonna take a little while, but yeah, that's great. Well,
Oh,
congratulations.
oh, thanks. Appreciate it.
So, we're going to tell people what the takeaway is going to be, and then we're going to
Hmm.
talk a little more about your journey and come
Okay.
back to it. Okay, so why don't you tell people if you want them to get anything out of this discussion, what is it?
Yeah, we kind of chatted about this a little before we hit the record button, and I think the takeaway would have to be like now's the time to get into real estate and specifically multifamily. I'll give you a couple reasons why. One, most people recognize that investments generally move in cycles, whether you're talking about the stock market or real estate or multifamily. And without going into a lot of details, we're at or near the bottom of the multifamily investing cycle right now. The Fed began to raise interest rates a little over 3 years ago, back in 2022. They topped out about a year and a half ago, and just have now recently begin to lower those interest rates. And a lot of valuations in multifamily is tied to debt, to interest rates, simply because it shows what you can afford to pay for a property based on the debt payments, if you think about it. And so now's a great time to get into multifamily. And, it's probably an overused saying, but everyone, talks about the Warren Buffett saying about, being fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful and all that. And There's certainly some fear out in the market right now. There's a lot of ambiguity and just kind of unknown of what's going to happen next. But that's what creates the opportunity for people who are willing to take that bit of risk and jump in now that they can potentially do very well for themselves as an investor over the next few years.
Absolutely. And it's funny because part of what we were just talking about before getting on this recording was also that prices right now are 20, sometimes 30% lower than in 2021 and 22. So,
Absolutely. We
you
we have
know,
we have one asset we looked at recently that it's about 70% of what it sold for 4 years ago, that we were looking to buy. So that just kind of gives you one example that meets your point there.
exactly. So if someone's fearful, maybe they should be looking at that because the prices were already there.
Yeah.
It's not like this will be a first time to get to that point.
Yep.
That
Agree
makes,
completely.
yeah. And so tell me, do you have engineers that are some of your former fellow engineers that are investing in your deals?
Yeah, we do. Pretty blessed to say I have a number of, former coworkers and just other people I've met in the engineering community. Engineers are kind of our investor avatar. We work with investors from a lot of different backgrounds, but many of them do come from a technical background. They have a lot of questions about numbers and details on business plans and stuff like that. And so, I kind of cater to that investor persona in terms of trying to be disciplined in how I underwrite, answer those questions, and communicate the risks and the mitigation of those risks to those investors. And so, yeah, we have a number of engineers, and always looking for more if there's some that are interested in investing.
Right. Well, so, and then I think you said that you started out buying into other people's deals, but now you are exclusively doing your own. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. We did a couple LP deals early on when we first got our feet wet in multifamily, but since about 2020, 21, we've been buying and investing in our own deals. And so we're in a number of markets across both Texas and Oklahoma. Historically, we've bought in a lot of tertiary markets just because we found better deals there, but we also look for deals in our backyard here in DFW as well.
And what are you looking for? What's in your buy box?
Yeah, I think a few things. I like stuff with a good story to it, which that probably sounds a little bit vague, but in terms of, why the person is selling, why I'm getting it at the price I am, do I have some kind of in? Is it an off-market deal? And then, what's the potential on the property, right? What's the apogee? Where can it reach? So, we're looking for things that, maybe they've been performing poorly, they haven't been managed well, or properties that, need some TLC, they haven't been fixed up. So, for example, one of the projects we bought last year had been owned by the same mom and pop owners for 35 years. And they were basically ready to get rid of it and, sell off into the sunset. And so we were able to come in and get that property at an extremely attractive basis, but it came with a lot of work, right? There was no professional level management in place, a tremendous amount of construction. Property was about 65% economically occupied when we took over. So just a lot of work that goes into a project like that. But that's where you create value in this industry, I would say, is solving big problems like that.
Now, just to make it relatable, well, first of all, LP stands for limited partners. Those are the investors, but the 65% occupancy, what is normal for the area and how's
Yeah, for
it
this
going?
area, about 90%, so we would expect to see at least 90, and hopefully if we're running the deal, even a little bit higher than that. And probably another key term that I mentioned was economic, right? So that means that it's not just about people in the units, it's about people that are in the units and paying. So if you have a resident in there who they're physically there, but they're not paying their rent, then they would not be counted in that number.
Or if it's not market rent too, right?
That
It's
too.
anything
Yep.
below. So
Yep.
yeah, market economic is full bore, greatest
Absolutely.
potential, gross potential.
Yeah.
So insofar as Would you say that was your toughest one to take on as far as scope of work?
Yeah, it was. A lot of our projects historically have been what I would call light value add. So it's, what you would see a lot of syndicators doing in the sense of, there's 100 units and 10 of them have been upgraded and they've proven out the rent increase and we're just kind of continuing on. Whereas this one was more of a deal from scratch. Even more than that, being such low occupancy, we had to get what's called a bridge loan on it, which is for maybe for some of your like single family investing listeners, it's basically like a hard money loan for multifamily that's meant to be short term, but it's very high interest. And so you simply use it to take over, do the construction that's needed, get the occupancy over 90 and refinance, which we're actually in the process of doing right now for that project. And so there's a lot of potential reward in a project like that, right? But there's a little bit more risk since you're taking over an asset that's not cash flowing day one. You have to have this higher risk bridge loan, and you have to make sure you're going to be able to get the property stabilized and be able to refi at a later point.
Right. Yeah. Then yeah, it makes a big difference. And it takes some diligence. You need to have good schedule, right? And be
Yeah,
able to stay on.
a really good team, both in the property management seat as well as on the construction side to be able to execute on something like that.
And so your wife oversees that, does she?
She does, and I help a little bit. I tend to gravitate a little more towards the construction piece. I'll get on management calls and stuff. I don't particularly enjoy, badgering PMs every week about tasks and stuff like that, but she's really good at it. But yeah, that's kind of her wheelhouse, and she does particularly well, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased, but yeah, and I tend to focus a little more on the construction, the business plan, and keeping the lenders happy, all that kind of stuff.
Great, great. So, and how many properties do you have now?
We've done 8 or 9 syndication projects total.
Great.
Like I said, about to sell our first one. So, I tell everyone we've been doing this for a few years, but we haven't been doing it forever. So, there's some people out there, they've been doing this 30 years and, 50 full cycle deals. We're not at that level, but we didn't start last week either. So we have some experience and particularly in a time when the market has been very dynamic. It's like every year the game just totally changes the last 5 years between COVID and post-COVID and interest rates going up, interest rates stabilizing, and it's really just been a dynamic time to be involved in. It's challenging, it's a lot of fun, but it takes a lot of work to stay on top of it.
Sure does. And then add to the what you're saying and going back also to this being the time to buy. Um, what I keep reminding my friends who are mainly baby boomers, this is a generational wealth transfer going on once in a
Mhm.
generation ever, if it's the biggest on record ever
Yeah,
for boomers retiring. So passing on businesses, passing on property and dying as well, and all this stuff that's really making it an important time to pay attention to begin with. And if
yeah,
if you want to participate in any of that wealth transfer, you got to be paying attention, right?
yeah. Couldn't agree more.
Right. Well, so I want to go ahead and ask you at this point in time, like I ask everybody, is there a pivotal person or event that's brought you to where you are today or that's pushing you towards some goal?
Huh. Well, it's probably going to sound a little bit contrived, but I think it's legitimately the best response. I would say my wife, Paula.
Hmm.
I worked as an engineer for about 8 or 9 years before I got into real estate, and I would say it was really her encouragement that push me to take the risk and jump in and learn about it and buy property and do some crazy stuff. And so yeah, she's been really key. She also encouraged me when I left my job. I left my job a couple years before she did, as I mentioned, and so that was obviously a pretty big step. So yeah, she's definitely the cheerleader on the side, but also team player that's helped us out as we've gone through all these projects. So I would have to nominate her.
That's great. Well, then you can be the one to tell her. And if she will
All
get with
right.
me to schedule a time and come on the show, she'll get a lapel pin and get promoted as a pivotal person. And that's a little extra
I'm sure we
funds.
can make that happen, and you can grill her about all things asset management that you're interested in
That
knowing.
would be great. Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. Super. Well, so as far as any last thoughts that you want to share, is there something that you'd like to go into? We're going to put all your contact information in the show notes, and I want you to give your contact information. But is there, before you do that, anything else that you'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I guess just to kind of summarize the highlight point that I mentioned earlier about now is a great time to invest. I remember a story. It was, I think, on maybe a Bigger Pockets podcast or something that I heard from an investor early on when we were starting. And basically, it was something along the lines of like their reason for investing is they didn't want to be on their hospital deathbed many years in the future and like regretting not taking risks and not trying something in their life. And that really resonated with me that like, you get one chance to live. So why do it mediocre? Play all out. And like I said, I happen to think that now is a great time to get in investing. But regardless of what that dream is that's on your mind, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So jump on it today. And that's probably the best bit of advice I could give.
Well, that's really good advice. It really is. Very true. Okay. Well, so tell people how they can reach you.
Yeah, sure thing. Probably the easiest thing is on our website. It may be kind of small on the banner behind me, but it's Apogee MFC, like multifamilycapital.com. We've got a ton of information about ourselves, our projects. You can reach out to us there. That'd be the easiest place to go.
And spell it, because remember, some people
Sure
are on
thing. Yeah, yeah,
iTunes
yeah.
or yeah.
APOGEEMFC.com.
All right. And so we'll put your contact information in the show notes, like I said. And really appreciate you coming on. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Jenny. Great to be here.
Okay, we'll be in touch soon. You'll hear from us when it's ready to air.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you.
Talk to you later.